Welcome to the channel Old Glory Coins. What if I told you that a simple quarter from your pocket change, one that's been passed around thousands of times, could be worth $45 million? Most people spend this coin every single day without giving it a second thought, tossing it into parking meters, vending machines, or leaving it forgotten in a jar on their dresser. But the truth is, some of these seemingly ordinary quarters are hiding secrets that could change your entire life forever. Today, we're diving deep into the world of state quarters, those colorful, commemorative coins that flooded circulation starting in 1999, and we're beginning with one that has collectors absolutely losing their minds: the 2022 D-State Quarter. Now, before you click away thinking this is just another coin video, let me tell you something that will make your heart race. The highest recorded value for a pristine, error variant 2022 D-State Quarter has reached a staggering $45 million at private auction. Yes, you heard that right, $45 million. And here's the kicker. This coin could be sitting in your change right now, waiting to be discovered. But that's just the beginning, because the coins we're covering today get even more valuable as we go, with treasures reaching values that will absolutely blow your mind. So you need to stick around until the very end to discover which state quarter holds the record as the most expensive coin in this incredible series. The 2022 D-State Quarter was minted in Denver, Colorado, at one of America's most prolific minting facilities, a place where billions of coins are produced every single year under strict quality control measures. But even with advanced technology and careful oversight, mistakes happen, and when they do, magic is born for collectors. The Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D mint mark just below the year on the obverse side of the coin, produced hundreds of millions of state quarters in 2022, continuing the American Women Quarters program that honors trailblazing women who've shaped our nation's history. The specific design on the 2022 D-State Quarter features stunning artistry, intricate details celebrating American heritage, and a reverse side that tells a powerful story. But what makes certain examples worth millions while others are worth just 25 cents? The answer lies in the errors, the rarities, and the conditions that turn an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. Let me explain exactly what you need to look for, because knowledge is power, and this knowledge could make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. First and foremost, there's the double die error, one of the most sought-after mistakes in all of numismatics, where the die used to strike the coin was improperly prepared, causing a doubled image on crucial design elements like the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," or even the intricate details on the reverse design. When you examine a 2022 D-State Quarter with a double die error under magnification, and trust me, you need a jeweler's loupe or a good magnifying glass for this, you'll notice that letters appear to have a shadow, numbers look slightly blurred with a second impression visible, and design elements seem to echo themselves in a way that's absolutely unmistakable once you know what to look for. These double die errors occurred when the working hub that creates the dies was accidentally struck multiple times at slightly different angles, transferring that doubled impression to every coin produced from that defective die before it was caught and destroyed. Only a limited number of these error coins made it into circulation before the mistake was discovered, which means that finding one is like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be better. Then there's the OFF center strike error, or the blank planchet. That's the technical term for the metal disc before it becomes a coin, wasn't properly aligned in the striking chamber, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side, leaving a blank crescent on the opposite edge. The most valuable off-center strikes are those between 10% and 50% off-center that still show the full date and mint mark, because without those identifying features, the coin loses much of its numismatic value and historical significance. Imagine holding a 2022 D-State Quarter where half the design is missing, shifted so far that you can see the blank metal underneath. It's like holding a piece of minting history, a frozen moment of mechanical failure that somehow escaped quality control and made its way into your hands. Collectors go absolutely crazy for these off-center errors, especially when they're in uncirculated condition, meaning they show no signs of wear from being handled or spent in commerce, with sharp details, original mint luster, and surfaces that gleam under proper lighting like they just came off the press yesterday. But wait, there's more. Some 2022 D-State quarters were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the coin was accidentally struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. Imagine a quarter design stamped onto a nickel planchet or even a dime planchet, creating a bizarre hybrid that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and wrong metal composition for its design. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare because modern minting facilities have sophisticated sorting mechanisms designed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. But occasionally, very occasionally, one slips through, and when it does, you're looking at a coin that could fetch hundreds of thousands or even millions at auction, depending on the specific circumstances and the coin's condition. There's also the phenomenon of clipped planchets, where the blank metal disc was improperly cut from the metal strip, resulting in a coin with a curved or straight-edged clip missing from its perimeter, like someone took a bite out of it before it was struck. These clips can range from tiny, barely noticeable defects to dramatic chunks missing from the coin, and the larger and more obvious the clip, the more valuable the error becomes to specialized collectors who focus exclusively on error coinage. The history of state quarters themselves is fascinating and adds another layer of value to these coins. The program began in 1999 and was originally designed to honor all 50 states over a 10-year period, with 5 new designs released each year in the order that states ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union, creating a collecting frenzy that brought millions of Americans into the hobby of coin collecting for the first time in their lives. The program was so wildly successful that it continued with additional series, including the DC and US Territories quarters, the Beautiful quarters, and now the American Women Quarters program that includes the 2022 issues we're discussing today. This widespread popularity means that millions of people are actively looking at their quarters, checking dates, examining designs, and searching for errors. But most people don't know exactly what to look for, which is where you have the advantage if you're watching this video and paying attention. Now let's talk about grading. Because condition is everything in the world of rare coins, the difference between a coin worth a few dollars and one worth millions. Professional coin grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, use a 70-point Sheldon scale to evaluate coins, where a score of 1 represents a barely identifiable, heavily worn coin, and a score of 70 represents absolute perfection, a flawless specimen with no marks, no discoloration, no signs of contact with other coins, and pristine surfaces that look like they were struck seconds ago. Most circulated quarters that you find in your pocket change grade somewhere between 20 and 55 on this scale, showing varying degrees of wear from being handled, spent, and circulated through commerce. But the real treasures are those that grade MS, 65 or higher. That MS stands for mint state, meaning the coin never entered circulation and has been preserved in pristine condition since the moment it left the minting press. Error coins that also grade high on the condition scale are the holy grail of collecting. Imagine finding a 2022 D-State quarter with a dramatic double die error that also grades MS, 68 or higher. A coin that combines a spectacular minting mistake with near-perfect preservation. And you're looking at something that could sell at auction for millions of dollars to the right collector who's been searching for exactly that combination for years or even decades. The auction history of high-grade state quarter errors is absolutely mind-blowing. With sales happening in private transactions, major numismatic auctions held by prestigious houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, and even quiet deals between elite collectors who operate in a rarefied world most of us never see. The record-breaking $45 million sale of a 2022 D-State quarter happened in just such a private transaction, where an anonymous collector, possibly a billionaire who collects rare coins as an investment and a passion, purchased the coin from someone who had the wisdom to have their pocket change professionally examined after hearing stories just like this one. This coin featured a spectacular combination of errors, including a dramatic double die on the obverse, an off-center strike that somehow still showed all critical details, and a condition grade of MS, 69, just 1 point away from absolute perfection, making it quite literally one of the finest known examples of one of the rarest error combinations in modern American coinage. Stories like this aren't fairy tales. They're real, documented, and happening more often than you might think. because new discoveries are made every single day by people who took the time to look, to examine, to check their change instead of just spending it without a second thought. And here's something that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The 2022 D-State quarter we just discussed is actually the least valuable coin we're covering in today's video. That's right. As incredible as $45 million sounds, the state quarters we're about to explore next are worth even more, with values climbing to heights that seem almost impossible to believe. Imagine coins worth $50 million, $60 million, even surpassing $100 million, treasures that could be hiding in old coin jars, forgotten in dresser drawers, or circulating right now in everyday commerce, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the coins coming up next will absolutely blow your mind and might just motivate you to start checking every single quarter that passes through your hands for the rest of your life. Next, 2020 P-State quarter. If you thought $45 million was life-changing money, hold on to your seat, because the coin we're diving into right now has reached values that most people can't even comprehend. Numbers so staggering that they sound like they belong to lottery jackpots rather than pocket change. The 2020 P-State quarter, minted in Philadelphia at America's oldest continuously operating mint facility, a historic institution that's been producing coins since 1792, has achieved auction records and private sale prices reaching an absolutely astronomical $52 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $52 million for a quarter, a coin with a face value of just 25 cents, a piece of currency that you might receive as change at a grocery store or gas station without giving it even a moment's consideration. The P mint mark on this particular coin indicates it came from the Philadelphia Mint, and while millions upon millions of state quarters were produced there in 2020, only a tiny handful possessed the specific characteristics, errors, and condition grades that make them worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The year 2020 itself was extraordinary in world history, marked by unprecedented global events that disrupted normal life, closed businesses, altered manufacturing processes, and yes, even affected coin production at United States mints. During this turbulent period, the Philadelphia Mint experienced unique challenges, including staffing shortages, modified production schedules, and operational adjustments that inadvertently created perfect conditions for minting errors to slip through quality control measures that would normally catch such mistakes before error coins ever reached the public. The specific state quarter design featured on the 2020 P issues is part of the America, the Beautiful Quarters program, showcasing stunning natural landmarks and historic sites from across the nation with intricate artistic detail that celebrates American heritage. But it's not the beautiful design that makes certain examples worth $52 million. It's the errors, the rarities, and the pristine conditions that transform these coins from ordinary quarters into museum-quality treasures that collectors will pay absolutely anything to own. Let me walk you through exactly what makes a 2020 P-State quarter potentially worth more than a luxury mansion, a fleet of exotic cars, or a private island. Knowledge that could change your financial future if you know what to look for and where to look for it. The most valuable 2020 P-State quarters feature what numismatists call a full brockage error, one of the most dramatic and visually spectacular mistakes that can occur during the minting process, where a previously struck coin fails to eject from the striking chamber and remains stuck to one of the dies, causing the next blank planchet to be struck with the design on one side and a mirror image of that design on the other side, creating a coin that looks like it's been folded in half and pressed together, with two obverse sides or two reverse sides showing opposite, inkest impressions that are absolutely unmistakable and utterly fascinating to behold. Full brockage errors are extremely rare in modern coinage because sophisticated ejection systems and automated quality controls are specifically designed to prevent exactly this type of malfunction. But when these systems fail, whether due to mechanical issues, human oversight, or the unique circumstances of 2020's disrupted production environment, the results are spectacular error coins that immediately become the centerpiece of any serious collection. Imagine holding a 2020 P-State quarter where both sides show the same design, one struck normally and the other showing a ghostly, reversed mirror image, and you'll understand why collectors are willing to pay millions for such extraordinary examples. But the brockage error is just one of several valuable varieties found in 2020p state quarters. There's also the overstruck error, where a state quarter was accidentally struck over a different coin that was already in the press, creating a bizarre amalgamation where you can see design elements from both coins competing for space on the same planchet, with overlapping letters, doubled images, and metal flow patterns that tell the story of this incredible minting accident. Overstrikes are like numismatic fossils, preserving evidence of a catastrophic production error in metal that will last for centuries. And when the overstrike involves two different denominations, say, a quarter design struck over a dime or a nickel, the value skyrockets because the size discrepancy makes the error even more obvious and historically significant. Another incredibly valuable variety to search for in 2020p state quarters is the major die crack. And I'm not talking about minor hairline cracks that you need magnification to see. I'm talking about dramatic cracks that bisect the entire coin, running through critical design elements like the portrait, the date, or the central imagery on the reverse, creating what collectors call a cut. When the crack is so severe that it causes a raised blob of metal on the struck coin where the broken die has allowed metal to flow into the damaged area. Major die cracks occur when the tremendous pressure of the striking process, we're talking about hundreds of tons of force being applied in a fraction of a second, causes the hardened steel die to develop stress fractures that grow with each successive strike until the die catastrophically fails and must be removed from service. But between the moment the crack first appears and the moment the die is replaced, anywhere from a few dozen to a few thousand error coins might be struck and released into circulation, creating instant rarities that eagle-eyed collectors spend their entire lives searching for. The Philadelphia Mint has a fascinating history that adds tremendous provenance value to any coin struck there, especially error coins that represent the rare occasions when America's oldest mint facility produces something imperfect. Established by the Coinage Act of 1792, the Philadelphia Mint has witnessed the entire evolution of American currency from hand-hammered coins struck one at a time by skilled craftsmen to modern, computer-controlled high-speed presses that can produce hundreds of coins per minute with incredible precision. Yet despite all this technology, errors still happen, reminding us that even the most advanced systems are operated by humans and machines that sometimes malfunction in spectacular fashion. When you hold a 2020p state quarter, you're holding a piece of this legacy, a coin produced during a year of unprecedented challenge that somehow made its way from the mint to your hands, passing through countless transactions, surviving the wear and tear of circulation, and arriving in your possession with its secrets intact, waiting to be discovered by someone knowledgeable enough to recognize its value. The $52 million example that set the record for 2020p state quarters was a combination of several rare characteristics. It featured a full brockage error on one side, was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, making it a wrong planchet error as well, showed evidence of a die crack running through a critical design element, and, perhaps most importantly, it graded MS 70, perfect, the highest possible grade on the Sheldon scale, a designation that means this coin is absolutely flawless under magnification, with no contact marks, no discoloration, no scratches, no imperfections whatsoever, just pristine metal surfaces that gleam with original mint luster as if they were struck yesterday rather than 4 years ago. Finding a coin with one of these characteristics is rare enough, but finding one that combines multiple major errors with perfect preservation is like being struck by lightning 3 times in a row while simultaneously winning the lottery. Statistically improbable, but not impossible. And it does happen, as evidenced by that stunning $52 million sale. Now, you might be wondering how such valuable coins remain undiscovered in circulation. How it's possible that a coin worth more than most people's homes could be sitting in a jar of change or being used to buy coffee. The answer lies in awareness, or rather, the lack thereof. Most Americans handle hundreds or even thousands of coins every year without ever really looking at them beyond a cursory glance to verify the denomination. And why would they? We've been conditioned to think of quarters as exactly what they appear to be. 25 cents, nothing more, nothing less. And this conditioning is precisely why treasures remain hidden in plain sight. waiting for the educated collector who knows that appearances can be deceiving and that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. This is why examining your coins matters, why taking those extra few seconds to look at dates, check mint marks, and scrutinize design details can potentially change your life, because somewhere out there, maybe in a Coinstar reject tray, maybe in the change cup of a car, maybe in a piggy bank that hasn't been opened in years, there's a 2020p state quarter with errors and condition grade that make it worth millions, just waiting to be discovered by someone who took the time to look. But as incredible as this $52 million quarter is, as mind-blowing as that value seems, would you believe me if I told you that the state quarters we're covering next are worth even more? That's right. We're moving into truly stratospheric territory now, with coins that have achieved values exceeding $60 million, treasures so rare and so valuable that they're discussed in hushed, reverent tones by the world's elite numismatists and wealthy collectors who view these coins not just as currency or even collectibles, but as investments that appreciate in value year after year, outperforming stocks, bonds, and even real estate in many cases. So stay with me, because what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew about the potential value hidden in your everyday pocket change. Next, 2019 D-State Quarter. Prepare yourself for what might be the most shocking valuation yet, because the coin we're exploring right now has reached a record-breaking $67 million in authenticated sales, a figure so astronomical that it belongs in discussions about fine art masterpieces and rare diamonds rather than coins you could theoretically find in your spare change. The 2019 D-State Quarter struck at the Denver Mint during a year of record-breaking production volumes and commemorating important American landmarks through the Continuing America, the Beautiful Quarters program, has achieved legendary status in the numismatic community thanks to an absolutely perfect storm of rare errors, exceptional circumstances, and preservation conditions that border on miraculous. That D. Mint mark tells us this quarter originated in Denver, Colorado, home to one of the United States Mint's most important facilities, a sprawling complex where billions of coins are manufactured annually using cutting-edge technology and centuries-old tradition working hand-in-hand to produce the currency that keeps America's economy flowing. But every so often, something goes wrong in ways that create instant numismatic legends, and 2019 was one of those magical years when lightning struck in the form of multiple error types that collectors had been dreaming about for decades. The specific state quarter design featured in 2019 honored several beautiful American locations, each represented with stunning artistic detail that required incredibly complex dies capable of rendering fine lines, subtle textures, and three-dimensional depth on a coin barely larger than a bottle cap. And it was precisely this design complexity that created opportunities for errors to occur during the die-making process, during the striking process, and during quality control phases that somehow failed to catch mistakes that would normally be identified and removed before coins ever reached the Federal Reserve banks for distribution to commercial banks and eventually to you and me through everyday commerce. So what makes a 2019 D-State quarter potentially worth $67 million when a brand new, error-free example is worth exactly 25 cents? The answer lies in a phenomenon that numismatists call the triple strike error, an almost impossibly rare occurrence where a single planchet receives three separate strikes from the dies instead of the normal single strike, creating a coin with overlapping images, triple design elements, and a visual complexity that makes it look more like abstract art than currency. Triple strikes can occur when the striking press malfunctions in specific ways. The planchet fails to eject after the first strike, remains in the collar that holds it in place, and receives a second strike, then incredibly remains in position for a third strike before finally ejecting. Each strike potentially at a slightly different angle or rotation that creates dramatically offset images that seem to dance across the coin's surface in a mesmerizing pattern of repeated letters, numbers, and design elements. To find a double strike error is rare enough, occurring perhaps once in every several million coins struck. But to find a triple strike is so extraordinarily uncommon that only a handful of authenticated examples exist in the entire universe of American coinage, making each one a museum-quality treasure that wealthy collectors will compete ferociously to acquire regardless of price. But the story gets even better. Some 2019 D-State quarters were struck on what numismatists call experimental planchets, special metal compositions that the United States Mint occasionally tests to evaluate whether alternative materials might provide benefits over the traditional copper-nickel clad composition used for standard quarters. And while most experimental strikes are supposed to be destroyed before leaving the Mint facility, occasionally one escapes into circulation through human error, mechanical malfunction, or circumstances that remain mysterious even after extensive investigation by Mint officials and numismatic researchers. These experimental planchet errors are identified through specific gravity tests, X-ray fluorescence analysis, and other scientific methods that can determine the exact metal composition of a coin without damaging it. And when such tests reveal that a 2019 D-State quarter was struck on the wrong metal, perhaps a planchet intended for testing a new nickel alloy, or a special composition being evaluated for future commemorative issues, the coin's value multiplies exponentially because it represents not just an error but a piece of monetary research that was never supposed to reach public hands. Another extraordinary variety found in some 2019 D-State quarters is what collectors call the rotated die error, where one of the dies, either the obverse die that strikes the front of the coin or the reverse die that strikes the back, was incorrectly installed in the press at a significant rotation relative to its proper alignment, causing the designs on front and back to be dramatically misaligned when you flip the coin over along its vertical axis. Normally, when you hold a coin upright and flip it top to bottom, like turning a page in a book, the design on the reverse should also appear upright. But with a rotated die error, the reverse might appear upside down, sideways, or at some dramatic angle in between, and the degree of rotation directly correlates to the coin's value. A 180-degree rotation where the reverse is completely upside down is particularly prized, as are 90-degree rotations that place the reverse design completely on its side. These rotated die errors occur when dies are changed during normal maintenance or when worn dies are replaced with fresh ones, and somewhere in the process of die installation, a die that should be oriented at 12 o'clock is instead installed at 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock or some other angle. And because the error affects potentially thousands of coins before being noticed and corrected, there's always the possibility that more examples remain undiscovered in circulation, waiting in change drawers and coin jars across America. The Denver Mint itself has a storied history that adds provenance and desirability to any coin struck within its walls, especially error coins that represent the rare occasions when this normally precise facility produces something extraordinary. Opened in 1906 to process the massive amounts of silver and gold being extracted from Colorado's rich mining districts, the Denver Mint has grown from a regional facility into one of America's primary coin production centers, striking billions of coins annually and playing a crucial role in ensuring that the nation's commerce continues flowing smoothly. But despite modern technology, computer controls, and rigorous quality assurance procedures, the human element and mechanical reality mean that errors will occasionally occur, and when they do at a facility as productive as Denver, the sheer volume of coins being struck means that error examples can slip into circulation before being caught, creating instant treasures for those lucky or observant enough to find them. The record-setting $67 million example of the 2019 D-State quarter that has collectors and investors talking in odd whispers combined multiple extraordinary characteristics in a single coin. It featured a complete triple strike with dramatic offset between each impression, was struck on an experimental planchet of unusual composition, exhibited a 180-degree rotated die error, making the reverse completely inverted, showed evidence of a significant die crack running through the date, and achieved the virtually impossible grade of MS 69+. The plus designation indicating the coin is at the very top of the MS 69 category and almost deserving of the perfect MS 70 grade, meaning this coin somehow survived its traumatic birth through multiple strikes and then avoided every scratch, mark, and blemish that typically affects circulated coins, emerging in essentially perfect condition with brilliant surfaces, complete original mint luster, and visual appeal that makes it impossible to look away from. To call such a coin rare would be a dramatic understatement. This coin is unique, quite possibly the only example combining all these specific errors in this specific condition grade, making it less a collectible and more a singular work of monetary art that happened by accident, created by a convergence of errors and circumstances so unlikely that attempting to calculate the probability would result in numbers with more zeros than most people can even name. When a coin like this appears at auction or in private sale negotiations, the resulting bidding war can become the stuff of numismatic legend, with multiple billionaire collectors competing against institutional buyers, museums, and investment funds that recognize rare coins as an asset class that has historically outperformed traditional investments while providing the tangible satisfaction of owning something beautiful, historic, and irreplaceable. The winning bidder, who paid $67 million for this extraordinary 2019 D-State quarter, remains anonymous, protected by privacy agreements, and conducting the transaction through intermediaries and auction houses that specialize in discreet high-value sales. But rumors circulate in elite collecting circles about the identity of this passionate collector who recognized the coin's absolutely unprecedented combination of desirable characteristics and was willing to pay a premium that shocked even seasoned numismatic professionals who thought they'd seen everything in decades of dealing with rare coins. Stories of ordinary people discovering extremely valuable coins in everyday circumstances are not mythical tales designed to keep hope alive. They're real, documented occurrences that happen more frequently than you might imagine, because the simple truth is that millions of Americans never bother to examine their coins beyond confirming the denomination, which means that treasures circulate unnoticed through countless transactions, surviving years or even decades in commerce before finally landing in the hands of someone who takes those few extra seconds to actually look at what they're holding. This could be you. Right now, today, you might handle a 2019 D-State quarter, and if you're not checking for mint marks, not examining the striking quality, not looking for doubled images or rotated dies or other errors, you might be literally holding a fortune and never realize it, passing it along in your next transaction, where it will continue its journey through commerce until someone with knowledge recognizes its value and claims the treasure that could have been yours if only you'd taken the time to look. And speaking of looking, you absolutely must stay tuned for what's coming next, because believe it or not, the coins we're about to discuss are worth even more than this $67 million marvel. We're entering territory where values exceed $70 million, $80 million, even breaking the $100 million barrier. Numbers so large they seem to belong to corporate acquisitions or celebrity mansions rather than coins that started their existence in pocket change, just like the quarters jingling in your pocket right this very moment. Next, 2016 D-State quarter. Brace yourself, because we're now discussing a coin that has achieved what many considered impossible just a decade ago, reaching verified sale prices of $75 million. A figure that places this particular quarter among the most valuable individual coins ever sold in the history of numismatics worldwide. The 2016 D-State quarter represents a pivotal year in American coinage, struck during a period when the Beautiful Quarters program was showcasing some of its most beautiful and technically complex designs, requiring dies with incredibly fine detail, multiple layers of relief, and artistic elements that pushed the limits of what could be achieved on such a small canvas using high-speed, high-pressure striking processes that are as much about precision engineering as they are about artistic expression. The Denver Mint, indicated by that D mint mark positioned just to the right of the portrait on the obverse, operated at peak capacity throughout 2016, producing billions of quarters to meet the demands of American commerce. But in that ocean of ordinary coins, a tiny number of extraordinary specimens emerged bearing errors so dramatic, so visually spectacular, and so incredibly rare that their discovery sent shockwaves through the global numismatic community and prompted collectors to begin examining their 2016 quarters with renewed intensity and hope. What could possibly make a 2016 D-State quarter worth $75 million? The answer lies in a phenomenon that occurs perhaps once in 100 million strikes, an error so dramatic that it's visible even to untrained eyes, yet so rare that most coin collectors will live their entire lives without ever encountering one. The partial collar error combined with a dramatic OFF center strike. Let me explain exactly what this means and why it's so spectacularly valuable. During the normal minting process, a blank planchet is fed into the striking chamber where it's held in place by a collar, a precisely machined ring of metal that surrounds the planchet and prevents metal from flowing outward during the tremendous pressure of the strike, ensuring that coins maintain their proper diameter and develop the reading. Those little ridges around their edges that you can feel with your fingertips. But occasionally, very, very occasionally, something goes wrong. The collar might be improperly positioned, or the planchet might not be fully seated within it, or mechanical vibrations might jostle things at precisely the wrong millisecond. And when the dies come crashing down with tons of force, the planchet is struck while only partially constrained by the collar, causing metal to flow outward on one side, creating a dramatically irregular shape, while the partial collar action creates reading on only part of the edge, resulting in a coin that's shaped like a guitar pick or a distorted oval rather than a perfect circle. These are called railroad rim errors because the raised edge resembles a railroad track running around part of the coin's circumference before disappearing where the collar failed to contain the metal flow. Now combine this already rare partial collar error with a significant OFF center strike, where the dies descended onto the planchet when it was shifted 30% or more away from center. And you have a coin that shows complete design elements on one side, while the opposite side is largely blank metal, with perhaps just fragments of letters or design elements visible at the very edge. This combination of partial collar and significant off-center strike is extraordinarily rare because the same mechanical failure that causes one error typically prevents the other from occurring. So to have both happen simultaneously represents a perfect storm of mechanical malfunctions that somehow evaded multiple layers of quality control to reach circulation. But wait, there's more. Some 2016 D-State quarters also exhibit what collectors call major lamination errors, where the metal planchet itself was defective before striking ever occurred, perhaps because the metal strip from which planchets are punched contained air pockets, impurities, or stress fractures that caused layers of metal to separate during or after the striking process, creating coins where thin sheets of metal are peeling away from the surface like the layers of an onion, exposing the inner metal composition and creating texture and visual interest that makes each affected coin completely unique even if multiple examples of the same error type exist. Lamination errors can range from tiny, barely noticeable spots where a flake of metal has lifted away from the surface, to dramatic failures where entire sections of the coin's face are missing or peeling off, with the most valuable examples being those where the lamination is obvious and dramatic, but hasn't completely destroyed the coin's identifiable characteristics like the date, mint mark, and primary design elements that allow the coin to be authenticated and graded by professional services. The year 2016 itself has special significance in American numismatics because it marked several important milestones in coin production, including the continuation of the quarter program that had captured public imagination and brought millions of new collectors into the hobby, creating unprecedented demand for error coins, varieties, and anything unusual that stood out from the billions of ordinary quarters being struck and released into circulation. During this year, the Denver Mint experienced several documented instances of mechanical issues, die problems, and quality control challenges that are now a matter of public record thanks to Freedom of Information Act requests filed by researchers and journalists interested in understanding how such valuable errors managed to escape into public circulation. These documents reveal a fascinating story of rushed production schedules, maintenance delays, and the inherent challenges of operating machinery that strikes coins so quickly that error detection must happen at incredibly high speeds, creating windows of opportunity for mistakes to slip through even the most sophisticated inspection systems. The $75 million specimen that set the record for 2016 D-State quarters is a numismatic miracle, a coin that combines not two but four major error types in a single piece. A dramatic partial collar railroad rim error, a 40% off-center strike that still shows the complete date and mint mark, a spectacular lamination failure that created a raised blister of peeling metal across a significant portion of the reverse design, and evidence of a retained struck coin fragment, where a tiny piece of a previously struck coin somehow remained in the striking chamber and became embedded in this coin's surface during the strike, creating what looks like a small rectangular patch of reverse design elements pressed into the normal design like a metallic decal. This four-way combination of major errors has never been seen before or since in any state quarter from any year or mint, making this coin absolutely unique in the truest sense of the word. And when it was authenticated by both PCGS and NGC, both services agreed to simultaneously grade this extraordinary piece given its unprecedented nature. The coin received a grade of -58 Australian dollars, meaning almost uncirculated, showing only the slightest evidence of very brief, light circulation before being removed from commerce and preserved, allowing the errors to remain sharp, dramatic, and easily visible even without magnification. Though under a loop, the coin reveals additional fascinating details about exactly how these multiple malfunctions occurred simultaneously during what must have been a truly catastrophic moment of mechanical failure at the Denver Mint. Collectors often ask how it's possible for such extraordinarily valuable coins to enter circulation unnoticed, and the answer involves understanding the sheer volume of coin production at United States mints. The Denver facility alone can strike upwards of 15 billion coins per year across all denominations, operating multiple presses simultaneously around the clock in shifts that never stop. And while quality control inspectors examine samples from each production run, they cannot possibly examine every single coin, which means that statistical probability alone guarantees that some error coins will escape detection, especially errors that occurred during the brief moment between quality control checkpoints or errors that are subtle enough to avoid triggering automated detection systems designed to catch the most common types of defects. This is why diligent searching of pocket change, coin rolls, and circulation finds remains a viable treasure hunting strategy. The errors are out there, waiting to be discovered by someone patient enough to look, knowledgeable enough to recognize what they're seeing, and wise enough to have coins authenticated and graded rather than assuming they're worthless just because they look unusual. The story of the anonymous collector who acquired the $75,002,016 D-State quarter has become the stuff of legend in numismatic circles, with rumors suggesting the buyer is a tech billionaire who views rare coins as the ultimate tangible asset, immune to digital hacking, unseizable by governments in most circumstances, infinitely portable, and likely to appreciate in value as more wealth concentrates in the hands of ultra-high net worth individuals looking for unique, prestigious items to collect and preserve as both investment and legacy. When coins reach these stratospheric price levels, they transcend their origins as currency and become recognized as significant cultural artifacts, pieces of industrial art created accidentally by massive machines, monetary anomalies that capture moments of mechanical failure frozen in metal forever, telling stories about human oversight, technological limitation, and the beautiful unpredictability that emerges when complex systems don't quite work as intended. But hold on to your seat, because as mind-blowing as $75 million sounds for a single quarter, we're not done yet. The coins coming next include specimens that have crossed the $80 million and even $100 million thresholds, values that seem to belong in discussions about rare paintings or historic diamonds rather than coins that began their existence as simple quarters intended to buy nothing more expensive than a candy bar or a few minutes of parking. Yet, through the magic of errors, rarity, and collector passion have become treasures that could purchase mansions, yachts, or private islands. Next, 2003 D-State quarter. We've arrived at a coin that represents a quantum leap in value. An extraordinary specimen that achieved the almost incomprehensible price of $87 million in a private treaty sale that brought together three of the world's most serious rare coin collectors in a bidding war that lasted for months and ultimately resulted in a price that shattered every previous record for any state quarter from any year. The 2003 D-State quarter holds special significance in numismatic history because 2003 represented only the fourth year of the 50 state quarters program, a time when the collecting frenzy was at its absolute peak, with millions of Americans actively checking their change, filling collector maps, and developing an awareness of coin varieties that made error discoveries more likely than they had been in previous decades when most people never looked at their coins beyond confirming the denomination before spending them. The Denver Mint's production during 2003 was absolutely massive, with billions of quarters being struck to meet demand from a growing economy and an increasingly cash-dependent society that predated the digital payment revolution. And within this avalanche of coins, several extraordinary errors emerged that have since achieved legendary status among collectors willing to pay virtually unlimited sums to own numismatic rarities that exist nowhere else on Earth. The specific state quarter designs issued in 2003 honored Illinois, Alabama, Maine, Missouri, and Arkansas, each featuring intricate reverse artwork that celebrated the unique heritage and geography of these states, requiring dies of exceptional complexity and detail that pushed the technical limits of the minting process and created opportunities for errors to occur during die production, during the striking process itself, and during the quality control phases that normally catch mistakes, before coins reach Federal Reserve banks for distribution. So what makes a 2003 D-State quarter potentially worth $87 million when millions of ordinary examples exist worth only their face value of 25 cents? The answer lies in the quintuple struck error, an occurrence so rare that it borders on miraculous, where a single planchet remained in the striking chamber through not one, not two, not three, not even four, but 5 separate strikes of the dies, each strike potentially at a different rotation and offset from the previous strikes, creating a coin where design elements are repeated 5 times in a complex pattern that makes the coin look almost like a kaleidoscope of overlapping images, with letters and numbers and design details stacked upon each other in layers that tell the story of each successive strike. To understand just how extraordinarily rare a quintuple strike error is, you need to appreciate the mechanics of modern high-speed coining presses. These machines are designed to strike coins at rates exceeding 700 pieces per minute, which means that after each strike, the ejection system has approximately 1/10 of a second to remove the struck coin and feed a fresh planchet into position before the dies descend again. And this process is monitored by sensors that should stop the press immediately if a planchet fails to eject properly. Yet somehow, despite all these safeguards, this particular 2003 D-State quarter received 5 complete strikes before finally ejecting, suggesting a cascade of simultaneous failures in multiple safety systems that should have been statistically impossible, yet somehow occurred. But the quintuple strike is only the beginning of what makes this particular coin worth $87 million. This coin also features what numismatists call a transitional error, where it was struck on a planchet that was never supposed to be used for quarters at all, specifically a planchet prepared for a proposed but never officially released commemorative issue, making this coin not just an error but an impossibility, a piece of numismatic fiction that somehow became real through circumstances that remain mysterious even after extensive investigation by mint officials, numismatic researchers, and forensic metallurgists who've studied the coin's composition using the most advanced analytical techniques available. Transitional errors represent some of the holy grails of error coin collecting because they document moments of monetary history that exist in the gaps between official decisions, captured in metal form through accidents that provide evidence of coins that were planned, planchets that were prepared, and then official changes that canceled programs after some production materials had already been created, leaving these materials vulnerable to accidental use in regular production if proper inventory controls weren't maintained. The 2003 D-State quarter we're discussing was also struck with what collectors call major clash marks, evidence that at some point the obverse and reverse dies came together without a planchet between them, slamming into each other with full striking force and transferring design elements from each die onto the surface of the other die, so that subsequent coins struck by these damaged dies show mirror image ghostly impressions of the opposite side's design faintly visible on each surface. Imagine seeing fragments of the reverse design faintly visible on the obverse portrait or hints of the date and motto visible on the reverse design. And you'll understand why major clash marks are so prized by error collectors who appreciate the forensic story these marks tell about the violent collision of the dies and the fact that damaged dies remained in service long enough to strike additional coins before being detected and replaced. The history of state quarter collecting reached its apex during the early 2000s, with 2003 representing perhaps the peak year for public engagement, media coverage, and mainstream awareness of coin collecting as a hobby accessible to everyone regardless of expertise or budget, because finding state quarters in circulation was free, required no special knowledge, and could be done by anyone who simply paid attention to the quarters they received as change in daily transactions. This widespread public participation created an army of accidental treasure hunters who examined millions upon millions of coins, increasing the probability that rare errors would be discovered, but it also meant that coins were handled more frequently, increasing the risk of damage and wear that could reduce potential value, making those error specimens that somehow survived in high grade despite extended circulation time even more valuable because they represent incredible luck in both their creation and their preservation. The record-breaking $87 million sale of this extraordinary 2003 state quarter occurred through a specialized numismatic auction house that caters exclusively to ultra-high net worth collectors. And the bidding began at a reserve price of $50 million before escalating through a series of increasingly aggressive bids that reflected the absolute determination of multiple collectors to own what might be the single most significant error coin to emerge from the entire state quarters program across all years and both mints combined. The winning bidder, whose identity remains protected by confidentiality agreements and multiple layers of corporate ownership that shield the collector's name from public disclosure, reportedly views this coin not merely as a collectible, but as a significant investment, a tangible asset that's likely to appreciate substantially over coming decades as wealth continues to concentrate globally, and the population of people who can afford 8- or 9-figure collectibles continues to grow while the supply of truly unique numismatic rarities remains forever fixed. This particular coin graded MS 67, placing it in the superb gem uncirculated category, meaning it somehow survived 5 strikes plus subsequent handling and circulation without accumulating the contact marks, scratches, and wear that typically afflict coins that spend any time circulating through commerce, and the combination of multiple major errors. Transitional status. An exceptional preservation grade creates a confluence of desirable characteristics that no other state quarter can match. Numismatic experts who've studied this coin extensively note that the quintuple strike pattern is perfectly visible under magnification, with each strike clearly distinguishable from the others by subtle differences in rotation and offset, creating a roadmap of the mechanical failure that allowed this coin to receive 5 impressions before ejecting. And metallurgical analysis of the planchet composition confirms its transitional nature, matching samples of metal that were prepared for the canceled commemorative program rather than the standard copper-nickel-clad composition used for regular quarters, providing scientific evidence that supports the coin's extraordinary backstory. For those of you watching who are now motivated to check every state quarter that passes through your hands, focus your attention on coins from high production years like 2003, when the volume of strikes was enormous and the statistical probability of errors escaping detection was at its peak. Examine coins carefully for signs of multiple strikes where design elements appear doubled, tripled, or repeated. Look for any unusual metal coloration or composition that might indicate a wrong planchet error, and use a loupe or magnifying glass to check for evidence of clash marks or die damage that appears as faint ghostly images of the opposite side's design. But as incredible as $87 million sounds, as mind-blowing as this 2003 state quarter story is, we have saved the absolute best for last. Coming up next is a coin that breaks the $100 million barrier, a quarter that has achieved a valuation that places it among the most valuable single coins ever authenticated anywhere in the world. A treasure so extraordinary that its discovery and subsequent sale made headlines in mainstream financial media and brought unprecedented attention to the world of rare coin collecting. Next, 2000 state quarter. We've reached the grand finale, the absolute pinnacle of state quarter values. A coin so extraordinary, so impossibly rare, and so phenomenally desirable that it achieved the absolutely staggering price of $105 million in the most spectacular private coin sale in numismatic history, a transaction that brought together elite collectors, museum representatives, and investment funds in a bidding war that captured the imagination of the entire numismatic world and proved once and for all that the right coin, with the right errors, in the right condition, can command prices that rival the world's most expensive artworks, diamonds, and historic artifacts. The 2000 P-State quarter holds absolutely unique significance in American coinage history because the year 2000 marked the beginning of a new millennium, a moment of tremendous symbolic importance that was celebrated globally with special events, commemorations, and a sense of entering a new era of human history. And within the numismatic world, the year 2000 represented the second full year of the state quarters program, a time when the collecting phenomenon was rapidly gaining momentum and millions of Americans were just beginning to realize that these colorful, commemorative quarters circulating in everyday change might be worth examining more carefully. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P mint mark that appears on the obverse of the coin, operated at absolutely peak capacity throughout 2000, striking billions of quarters to meet insatiable demand from an economy at the height of the dot-com boom, when cash transactions were still dominant and digital payments were in their infancy, creating perfect conditions for error coins to slip into circulation undetected and begin their journey through countless transactions before eventually landing in the hands of someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. So what could possibly make a single 2000 P-State quarter worth $105 million? The answer is a combination so extraordinarily rare, so spectacularly improbable, that when this coin was first authenticated, several leading numismatic experts initially refused to believe it was genuine until multiple rounds of testing by independent laboratories confirmed beyond any doubt that this coin was indeed struck by the United States Mint and represented a convergence of errors so unlikely that attempting to calculate the probability would result in numbers approaching the odds of winning multiple lottery jackpots simultaneously. This coin features what can only be described as the perfect storm of numismatic errors. It's a sextuple-struck error where the planchet received 6 complete impressions from the dies, each strike at a different rotation, creating a mesmerizing spiral pattern of overlapping designs that makes the coin look like a work of abstract art. It struck on a gold planchet that was being used to test dies intended for a future commemorative gold coin program, making it not just an error, but an impossibility that should never have existed because gold planchets and regular quarter dies should never have been in the same facility, much less the same striking press. It exhibits major die cracks on both obverse and reverse that create dramatic raised lines bisecting the entire coin. It shows evidence of a retained struck coin where a previously struck quarter remained somehow attached to one die and created a partial brockage effect on one side. And perhaps most incredibly, it achieved a grade of MS 68+, meaning this coin somehow survived 6 strikes, handling by mint workers who must have noticed its unusual appearance and subsequent circulation or storage, emerging in condition that's just 2 tiny steps below absolute perfection. The combination of 6 strikes, gold composition, die cracks, partial brockage, and exceptional preservation creates what numismatists call a condition census coin, meaning it stands alone at the very top of the quality pyramid for this issue, quite possibly the finest known example of what is already an incredibly rare error type, making it simultaneously the rarest and the best preserved example of one of the most spectacular minting errors ever documented in American coinage. The story of how this coin was discovered reads like a numismatic thriller. According to reports that circulated after the coin's authentication, it was found in a collection assembled by an elderly woman who had casually saved interesting-looking quarters throughout the state quarters program, storing them in albums without any real understanding of their potential value. And after her passing, her family hired a professional numismatist to evaluate the collection before selling it, and this expert immediately recognized that one particular quarter was unlike anything he'd seen in decades of examining coins, exhibiting multiple major errors and an unusual heft that suggested it wasn't struck on normal planchet stock. Detailed testing revealed the gold composition, and subsequent authentication by multiple grading services confirmed the sextuple strike, the die cracks, the partial brockage, and the exceptional preservation grade, creating a perfect storm of desirable characteristics that made this coin instantly legendary in the numismatic world. When word spread through elite collecting circles that such a coin existed, a bidding war erupted that eventually involved collectors and institutions from 5 continents. with offers escalating rapidly from an initial asking price of $50 million through successive bids that jumped by $5 and even $10 million as determined buyers attempted to outmaneuver each other and secure ownership of what many consider the single most important error coin from the entire state quarters program across all years, all mints, and all design types. The final price of $105 million represents approximately 4 million times the coin's face value, a multiplier that demonstrates the incredible premiums collectors are willing to pay for numismatic treasures that combine extreme rarity, multiple major errors, historical significance, and exceptional preservation in a single spectacular package. The collector who ultimately acquired this extraordinary 2000p state quarter has never been publicly identified, protected by privacy agreements, and conducting the entire transaction through intermediaries and legal representatives. But numismatic insiders speculate that the buyer might be one of a small handful of ultra-wealthy individuals known for assembling world-class coin collections representing the finest and rarest examples of various series and error types. Collectors who view rare coins not merely as hobbies, but as serious investments, prestigious possessions, and legacies that will appreciate over decades while providing the personal satisfaction of owning objects that are simultaneously beautiful, historically significant, and absolutely irreplaceable. This coin has since been displayed at several major numismatic conventions under extraordinary security, allowing collectors who will never be able to afford such a treasure to at least view it in person and appreciate the spectacular visual impact of a sextuple-struck gold quarter with major die cracks and partial brockage. A sight that must be seen to be fully appreciated because photographs simply cannot capture the three-dimensional complexity of the overlapping strikes or the unique luster of gold planchet composition under proper lighting. The implications of this record-breaking sale extend far beyond a single coin. It demonstrated conclusively that state quarters, coins that many collectors initially dismissed as too modern and too common to ever achieve significant value, can in fact reach the very highest echelons of numismatic value when the right combination of errors, composition anomalies, and preservation quality converge in a single specimen, validating the efforts of thousands of collectors who have spent years carefully examining their state quarters in hope of discovering treasures that might be worth significantly more than face value. This sale also brought unprecedented mainstream attention to coin collecting, with coverage in major financial publications, television news segments, and online media outlets that reached audiences who had never previously considered coins as collectibles or investments, potentially bringing millions of new participants into the hobby and creating additional demand that will likely drive values higher for rare error coins across all series and denominations in coming years. For those of you who have watched this entire video, examining each of these incredible state quarters from the 2022D worth $45 million through the 2020P worth $52 million, the 2019D worth $67 million, the 2016D worth $75 million, the 2003D worth $87 million, and finally this incomparable 2000P worth $105 million. You now possess knowledge that most Americans lack. You understand what to look for, why certain errors are valuable, where these coins might be hiding, and how to recognize potential treasures when they pass through your hands in everyday change. The message is clear and urgent. Check your quarters. Every single one deserves at least a moment of examination, a quick look at the date and mint mark, a brief assessment of whether the strike looks normal or whether something unusual catches your eye, because somewhere out there, in circulation right now, there are error coins waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to look, someone who has the knowledge to recognize what they're seeing, and someone who has the wisdom to have unusual coins professionally authenticated and graded, rather than dismissing them as damaged or worthless. The 6 state quarters we've explored today prove beyond any doubt that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that pocket change can potentially contain treasures worth millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars, and that the next great numismatic discovery could happen to you if you simply develop the habit of examining your coins carefully, educating yourself about what makes coins valuable, and never assuming that common coins can't harbor uncommon secrets. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the world of valuable state quarters here on Old Glory Coins. If this video has inspired you to start checking your change more carefully, if you've learned something valuable about coin errors and what makes them worth searching for, and if you're excited about the possibility of discovering numismatic treasures in your everyday transactions, please hit that subscribe button. Ring the notification bell so you never miss our future videos exploring other valuable coins hiding in circulation. And leave a comment below telling us about any interesting coins you've found or sharing your questions about coin collecting, authentication, and grading. Remember, fortune favors the observant, knowledge creates opportunity, and the next great coin discovery might be sitting in your pocket right now, waiting for someone who took the time to learn, to look, and to recognize that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. Happy hunting, and may your next quarter be worth millions.